Good morning. Good morning. My name is Santa Santina Gata. Thank you for joining us here on this podcast. We're going to get started right away in the Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 3. So, this is episode 3. And this chapter deals with the destiny of the righteous, it deals with the destiny of the ungodly, and we're going to speak about childlessness. So let's go ahead and see what King Solomon had to say about these topics. Let's go first into prayer. Father, we come into your presence with each and every single listener. Father, you care for my life and you care for each and every single person that you have made. We are all seeking knowledge and seeking the right way. Father, it's good for us to come to you because you know everything. You created this whole world. Not only do you have the wisdom of the world, but you are the prime mover, the prime creator. So we come into your presence and asking you to illuminate us, open our minds and hearts to understand and to have a basis to have a joyful, prosperous, happy life that you promise for those who love you. So let's get started. Chapter 3 writes, "But the souls of the righteous are in the hand of God." This is a good thing to be in the hand of God. It's a very reassuring state of mind to know that we are God's children. And no torment will ever touch them. Well, this is a very hopeful line for anyone who's alive today. To know that being in the hands of God is very reassuring, is very hopeful, and allows us to be at peace and at rest. In the eyes of the foolish, they seem to have died. So, meaning when those who worship God, those who have a relationship with God, and uh, other people might look at them as saying, "Oh, yeah, sure. Look what's happening in your life. Why do you even bother to talk about God? Look at your position. Look at what's going on with you." And but God is in charge. God has a plan, and there's a reason for everything. But in the end, those who are godly, those who have a relationship with God, will never be moved like wicked people or evil people. There's no comparison. And their departure was thought to be a disaster. Well, there are godly people who die. Yes, that's true. And King Solomon is writing that, and they're going from us to be their destruction. Some people may have thought, "Oh, look at that. This person was so good." Often we say this person was such a good person. Why were they taken away from us? And King Solomon is saying here that, but they are at peace. They're gone now. They went to the next world. And for though in the sight of others they were punished, it seems like, they're paying a price for something. They were punished. Their hope is full of immortality. So that person now is at rest, is at peace, and it's something for the living that they have to accept, they have to deal with. Having been disciplined a little, they will receive great good, because God tested them and found them worthy of himself. And like gold in the furnace, he tried them. And like a sacrificial burnt offering, he accepted them, meaning he accepted them into heaven. And this is good when people are dealing with a loss in their life. It happens all the time. Spouses lose their partners. Family loses a brother or sister, a mother or father. These are devastating situations, and it's good to surround yourself with loving people. It's good to surround yourself with prayer. It's good to surround yourself with a mindset that the person who passed away is in a good place. Pray for them. Pray for their positioning and their place in heaven, that they're now in another realm of in good hands. Anyone in God's hands is in good hands, whether on earth or in heaven. Like a sacrificial burnt offering, he accepted them, and in the time of their visitation, they will shine forth and will run like sparks through the stubble. They will govern nations and rule over people, and the Lord will reign over them forever. Interesting. They will govern nations and rule over people, and the Lord will reign over them forever. Is this on earth or in heaven or both? Those who trust in him will understand truth, and the faithful will abide with him in love, walking side by side, loving your neighbor as one loves himself or herself, because grace and mercy are upon his holy ones. And he watches over his elect. He watches over his people. He watches over people who call on his name. This is the destiny. Then King Solomon goes on to write the destiny of the ungodly. But the ungodly will be punished as their reasoning deserves. Those who disregard the righteous, those who disregarded the righteous. You know, when you're a righteous person, you too get persecuted. It happens often. People come against us for no reason, just because they feel like it. But God is watching the aggressor, the hater, and He is planning. He's planning to deal with that person at the right time that God sees fit. And rebelled against the Lord. So, but the ungodly will be punished as their reasoning deserves, and those who disregarded the righteous and rebelled against the Lord. For those who despise wisdom and instruction are miserable. Here we go. Why are we miserable? Well, look, it's King Solomon is saying it right here. Those who despise wisdom are miserable, and those who despise instruction are miserable. So if we don't want to be miserable, let's be wise and let's gain understanding. Their hope is vain, their labors are unprofitable, and their works are useless. Their wives are foolish, and their children evil. Their offsprings are accursed. Well, this is interesting. These are the words and sayings of King Solomon. King Solomon was reigned for about 40 years in the land of Israel thousands of years ago. He was considered to be one of the wisest kings that ever ruled on this earth. He was known to be very intelligent, not only with the spiritual matters, but also with worldly matters in terms of wealth, in terms of knowledge. His knowledge base was vast. And so he's writing, he's talking now about people. He's saying those who don't want to gain wisdom, who don't want to gain understanding. Uh, he it describes wicked people. He describes ungodly people. He goes further on to comment on their wives and their children. The children are evil. The wives are foolish, and their offsprings are accursed. The reason God instituted marriage, as we see in Genesis, is that so people would have godly children. Now, we can only have godly children, Solomon is saying, if you rear them and you raise them up to fear God. When we say we fear God, is that we acknowledge what God has written as an instruction manual for each and every single human being on earth. There's an instruction manual, there's a way to go. What we need to learn and understand is that the whole universe is ordered in a structural way, and that patterning, that ordering is fashioned, is orchestrated and created and upheld by the wisdom of God. And that same structure and fashioning and ordering is transferred down on earth, to and through each and every single person, if you adhere to the wisdom and the instruction of God. So we can fight this all we want. We can deny it and beat in the air and do as we please. Each person has their own free moral agency. But at the end of the day, God gets the last word. Choose obedience or choose disobedience. It's your choice, but we will reap the consequences of our actions. It's good practice to choose right. After a while, it gets fun, and it becomes a non sequitur after a while. You live a righteous life, and then you can go on to becoming a creator with that base foundation, with that base footing. Every building needs a foundation. But once it's built, then you can go higher and higher and higher and higher. I think we get the principle now. On childlessness. For blessed is the barren woman who is undefiled. Now, we've heard, and throughout the world, it is said that a woman who is able to conceive a family, a man and a woman who is able to produce children, are more blessed than a woman who is barren or a man who is not able to produce children. But King Solomon is saying the opposite here. And we've had apostles in the Word, like the Apostle Paul, who has a whole chapter devoted to people who are single, people who have never had children, that they are blessed in the sense that they're not consumed with the worries of marriage. And there is no shame if a man has never had children, so that they can devote themselves to other things, other godly aspirations. And if a man or a woman has no children, it's not accounted to them as a curse or a bad thing. So King Solomon is also saying this here. For blessed is the barren woman who is undefiled, meaning she has not had sexual relations. She's undefiled. Who has not entered into a sinful union. Well, a sinful union could be in the spiritual sense. I know in today's day and age, people make their own choices about who they want to share their bodies with. And King Solomon here is saying that if a person has been very cautious, or is cautious, or will be cautious in preserving not only their sacredness or their innocence, or they have not polluted themselves with the soul of another person. You know, it's said that God says that when two people come together, they join their souls together, meaning the soul of that person comes into your soul and vice versa. And it's fair because sometimes when we break up, when there's divorce or there's the person leaves our life, there's always a thought of them that comes up occasionally. And that's because they come under our skin. They're part of us. So this is what King Solomon is saying here, that she has not entered into a sinful union, meaning she's been very careful to not pollute herself, not to engage in any activity, sexual activity that would destroy her soul or destroy her life. She has boundaries and rules that if she is going to engage in sexual activity, it's going to be in and through a legitimate a marriage contract. So he's saying that here, and he goes on to say that she will have fruit when God examines souls. Interesting. She will have fruit when God examines souls. Well, when we die, God examines our souls. He asks for an account of, I don't know how that's done, because someone can't give an account of their life in 5 minutes. Will we remember everything we did from the time we were able to remember till the time we die? If that's 106 years, And God's gonna sit with us and say, okay, this is what you did at 5 years old, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and all the things we did wrong, right up to 106, or for however long we live. Um, that's going to be a very long sit down, and how uncomfortable that's going to be. Hopefully, it won't be that way. I don't know. But she will have fruit when God examines her soul. Interesting how not having sexual partners keeps your soul and mind pure. This is what God says. Other people have different views and they do as they please. But God will have is the final authority on this matter. Blessed also is the eunuch whose hands have done no lawless deeds. Well, I believe a eunuch is a person who um, does not engage in sexual activity. Um, and so, because of that, it's a man usually who actually has been castrated, and what they would do is that they would guard women living in areas. Um, who were these women in particular? But what they would do is protect women living in courts, maybe in palaces. Um, and I guess this served as a specific social function. So King Solomon is saying, "Blessed is this eunuch whose hands have done no lawless deeds, um, and who has not devised wicked things against the Lord. The special favor will be shown to him for his faithfulness," meaning he is like a policeman at a post who is faithfully protecting those around him or those around her, making sure that their person is not violated, making sure that their human rights are not violated. And this is what a eunuch did for women. And we all know that women need protection. They need protection at any time in history. Um, women are very strong, but when you're coming against people who devise wickedness, who devise a plan to trap you or to hurt you or to take something away from you, we're going to need backup of God, backup of friends, backup of family, backup and protection to protect ourselves. So this is what King Solomon is saying here. For those who, like eunuchs, who do go out of their way to work to protect women, um, that special favor will be shown him for his faithfulness, and a plan of great delight in the temple of the Lord. For the fruit of good labor is renowned. Meaning, when you work well, God is saying that King Solomon here is saying that when you're a good worker and you do anything with integrity, with ethics, with love, your work will become famous, your work will become renowned. For the fruit of good labor is renowned, and the root of understanding does not fail. So when we act with understanding, everything we do with understanding, it will be acknowledged, it will be noted, it will be noticed. But children of adulterers will not come to maturity. Well, I guess this is it's a cultural comment because remember that King Solomon lived thousands of years before, and it's possible that in those societies, anyone born out of a union, out of a marriage, was considered taboo, and it was even right up until the 40s and the 30s, 40s, and 50s. Adulterous children, meaning having had children out of an adulterous affair. It's similar to King David, who had an adulterous affair with Bathsheba, and all the problems that occurred in his family because of that. so they will not come to maturity. Well, anyone who comes to God and repents for a mistake or wrongdoing, God is quick to forgive and to set us back on the right path. Everyone makes mistakes. The offspring of an unlawful union will perish. Even if they live long, they will be held of no account. And finally, their old age will be without honor. Well, these are comments that he's making, and there are some truths to it. We can all think of examples of people who have had a poor upbringing. Uh, I spend quite a bit of time with homeless people on the streets. Not all, because everyone has their own story, but we know of people who were born out of wedlock, were born out of an adulterous affair, were born uh, out of a sexual union that was on the go, was not legitimate in the sense that it was a man and a woman who were drunk at a party one night, and they engaged in sexual activity, and the woman decided to have the child, and the father wanted no responsibility in his actions, and was able to slip away from the relationship, slip away from the responsibilities of caring for the child or the woman that he released his semen into. This is a worldwide epidemic that we need to teach young men all over the world, no matter how difficult this is to hear, that God is watching you. God has placed a great responsibility on each male, whatever age, teenage, young adult, elderly, that every part of your body, whatever it is supposed to be used for righteousness. Impregnating a woman, a female, and then leaving her to deal with your part in the equation is a great sin, not only to your life, to her life, to the family's lives, but to society. And King Solomon is saying here that these people who engage in these type of actions, it happens all the time, that your life is going to end up with dishonor. So you want to be careful with sexual activity, especially if you're drunk, if you've ingested too much drugs. You know what happens. Going down the wrong road, making a mistake that you cannot turn back at. Another example is where in this day and age, what's going on is that the worldwide epidemic of abortion. The fact remains is that there's a fetus in the womb of a woman, and that fetus is in potentiality. It's progressing toward a full human being that will come out of the birth canal and have a chance at life like all of us. To interrupt that potentiality, that creation, is not fair for the child. It's not fair for that fetus, even though it's not a full person yet. It's in the process of becoming. And so we need to really stop to be preventive. It's too late when the baby has been born and it's on a bad footing. It has no one to take care of it or to nurture it or to love it or to provide for it. If the parents will not provide for the child, what type of life will it have? What type of future are you giving this baby that you've created. So we want to be very careful. King Solomon is saying here, this is the reality of what goes on, and it went on thousands of years ago, and it goes on till today. We have a sexual escapade, the condom breaks, something goes wrong, and the woman is pregnant. And there's an attachment now to the whole process because there's a love, and there's people women who want to protect the baby, and there's some women who don't want the baby. So there's all kinds of scenarios. But the point I'm trying to make here, and that King Solomon is making, is be careful. That's why God instituted marriage, is because then that child who grows up to be an adult has had a good footing, has had a good upbringing, has had a protective childhood, has had their needs met. So how we begin is how we end. So this is what he's saying here. If they die young, they will have no hope and no consolation on the day of judgment, for the end of the unrighteous generation is grievous. So that was the chapter 4. King Solomon shares his wisdom, which was applicable then and is applicable to this day. I hope that you've enjoyed what you've heard. I hope that you put its practices or its nuggets of knowledge to practice in your own life so that you will have a good life, a good footing, no matter what start you've had. God is in the business of healing. God is in the business of educating. And I thank you very much for having listened to this podcast. Please reach out to me at www.gavotgallery.com, or you can go to YouTube, where I have videos on similar teachings. Please leave your comments. Tell me your name. Tell me what country you're in, what city you're in, and I'd be happy to answer any of your questions. I wish you a blessed day. Take care.